The Brooklyn Nets have picked up the Dragon from the buyout market. This is the nickname for Goran Dragic. At the beginning of the season, he was with the Raptors, but he only played 5 games there before he got traded to the Spurs, right before the trade deadline, where eventually his contract got bought out and there were some teams that wanted him really bad. However, the Nets got ahead of every team in the NBA and got him. So in this video, we are going to take a look at why this pickup will benefit the Nets more than we think. So like I mentioned, he was with the Raptors at the beginning of the season, but only played 5 games there. Reason being was that Nick Nurse didn't really like what he saw from the first few games he played with him. I mean, he did play horrible, averaging just 8 points, less than 2 assists a game, while shooting 38% from the field and 28% from 3. Those numbers are horrible. But the reason he was playing so horrible was because he didn't really fit with what the Raptors were trying to do. So eventually, the Raptors benched him because he was playing so horrible and gave Gary Trent Jr. more minutes, and we all know that has worked out for the Raptors really well. But let's not think about those 5 games and remember how good he actually is. You know, he's a veteran point guard who's a great playmaker, can play off the ball, can stretch the court with his shooting, and is a great leader that understands culture. And speaking of culture, do you remember when he was with the Miami Heat? He was balling those years, especially in the 2020 playoffs, and I'm pretty sure all of you can remember the Miami Heat making it to the NBA's finals that season. And he was arguably their second best player during the playoffs. He was averaging 19 points, 4 assists, while shooting 44% from the field and 34% from 3 during that playoff run. But sadly, his run came to an end because in game 1 of the NBA's finals, he suffered a left foot injury. He did return for game 6, but he didn't really help much because he was playing on 1 foot. However, the Nets don't need or want him to average more than 20 points a game. They already have multiple players that can give him 20 points any given night. What they do need Dragic to do is to bring a spark off the bench. And speaking of the Nets bench, they are really deep now. Before the trade deadline, this is how the roster looked. It's an incredible roster when all 3 superstars will be available to play. But without those 3 superstars playing, they couldn't really do anything on the floor. Now after the trade deadline, this is how the roster is looking. And I actually like this team way more than the one before. Plus, they also have Andre Drummond, who they also acquired through the James Harden trade, and their most surprising player, Cam Thomas, who has been showing up lately. This kid has a bright future. Plus, I really like the Nets' chances of winning a championship with this roster more now. Let me also not forget that Nash and Dragic have some history together. So he learned a lot from Nash because he was his mentor. And that he's now with the Nets, Nash is gonna have a player that he helped mature and understands the way that Nash likes to play. So I think Dragic will give some quality minutes to the Brooklyn Nets, but I don't think that Ben Simmons and Goran Dragic playing the 1 and 2 will work out for them because Dragic is at his best when he plays alongside players that have a jump shot and that can move well without the ball. To me, those players are Kyrie, Seth, and Patty Mills. So whenever Dragic is playing, he should always play at the 1, and Kyrie, Seth, and Patty should always play at the 2. Here are the percentage from where Patty Mills' shots are coming from. They are mainly coming off catch and shoot. And then when we look at his 3-point percentage plus at his effective field goal percentage, he's shooting better there than any type of shots he takes. Kyrie is kind of the same. Mainly his shots are coming from pull-ups. But when we look at his effective field goal percentage, his second most efficient shots are coming off catch and shoot. Only 1% less than his most efficient shots, which are coming from less than 10 feet. And now that we're talking about Kyrie Irving, did you hear that the New York City is about to lift its mandate in the next few weeks? This is crazy news for the Nets fans because they should be excited because now they will have a higher chance to win a championship if he can play every game. But back to Goran Dragic, the most impressive thing about the Nets picking up Dragic is, like I mentioned, multiple teams wanted him, and not just any teams, contender teams. The Bucks needed a point guard since Pat Connaughton is injured and they traded Dante to the Kings. The Lakers needed a point guard that can be a true point guard and facilitate the floor. Also, the Warriors, the Clippers, and the Chicago Bulls were looking for a veteran point guard, so that the Nets were able to take him away from all of these teams that have a good chance of beating them in a playoff series. It's the most impressive thing about this pickup from the Brooklyn Nets. But let me know down in the comment section if you think Dragic will help the Nets or not. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching. See you on the next one.